One of the hardest things about fencing and swordsmanship in general is getting quality training. Now, if you're lucky enough to live near a good club, you can go to fencing multiple nights a week. You can do private lessons, group lessons, partner drilling, and spar with your friends and with your teachers, and these are all amazing. And if you have the opportunity to do them, you absolutely should. But a lot of people don't live near a club. I personally live 2.5 hours away from my closest club and 4 hours away from my main club. Now, I do drive that far twice a week, but that's not enough fencing for me. And I know a lot of people, no way can they drive that far twice a week. I do this because it's my job. So what do you do if you don't have access to a close club and you want to fill in the gaps in your training? Well, one of the things that I've been focusing on a lot recently is solo drilling. Let's be clear, solo drilling isn't going to give you as much as partner drilling, private lessons, fencing, or anything where you're working with another person, but that doesn't mean it's not worth your time. Even if you are somebody who has access to a fencing club, you can still get a lot out of solo drilling. And if you don't have access to a local club, solo drilling can be an excellent way for you to keep your skills sharp between visits to a club or between talking to your instructor or however else you were learning. So today we're going to look at some of my strategies for solo drilling and help you set up your own routine so you can do it yourself at home. So let's talk about the 4 areas that I focus on when I'm doing solo drilling. Footwork, basic blade work, situational blade work, and strength and conditioning. These are all really important for fencing, and I'm going to show you how I tackle them. One of the first things that I focus on when I'm solo drilling is my footwork. It's one of the most important parts of fencing. Being able to rely on your feet to do what you want under pressure is incredibly important. Now, in order to get good footwork, you got to put in reps, but not all reps are created equal. When you're doing your solo footwork drilling, focus on getting the form correct. If you do sloppy footwork, it's going to show when you have to use it. So I'm going to start by doing my advances and retreats from saber. As I do them, I focus to make sure that my feet are doing exactly what I want them to. I take an open stretch of area and I go all the way from one side to the other. And when I get to the end, I come back. I'll do this for a number of reps, maybe 2 times down and back. And then I'll switch to the next piece of footwork, which might be switching to a more longsword stance and doing my gather steps. This is a newer step for me, so I'm focusing on getting the technique right and going slow. And if I notice that I mess up, I'm going to spend some extra time on it. You can do this for all of your footwork. Advances, lunges, passes. Once you get more confident with your basic footwork, you can add in the sword. This can give you valuable feedback as whether the rest of your body's in the right position. Maybe you're leaning back too far or forward too far. Having the sword in your hand is going to help you kind of see where your structure is. It also helps if you practice with mirrors in front of you if you have the option. This can also be really useful when you're doing things like passing steps. You can have the sword moves first into the step, and this can help you get your structure down better. Next is basic blade work. This is blade work that doesn't involve interacting with the opponent's sword at all. It's just throwing basic cuts and thrusts so you can get the hang of it. This is a great opportunity to practice moving your sword first and stepping with the right distance. So I can start here and I can move my sword first and then step into it, landing in a good stance afterwards. You can also use this for thrusts. This is also a great opportunity to practice specific techniques. So if I'm doing longsword, I might practice the master cuts. And I can do this without having to worry about an opponent, just repping the move over and over again until I feel comfortable with it. Now, you don't need an expensive martial arts training dummy to be able to practice your blade work. You can do it in the air, and that's totally fine. I do this a lot myself, but it's not quite as satisfying or, in my opinion, as helpful as actually hitting something. And there's another way that you can hit something for a lot less money. This is my tire rig. All it is some dead tires that I got for free from a tire shop. I just went in and say, hey, do you have any tires you can't use? And they gave me a ton. And then I've just cut holes in the tires and chained them up to the ceiling. If you don't have a ceiling that can support that, you can just stack them on the ground and put something in the middle so they don't fall down. You can nail them to a post, whatever you need to do, and it's basically free. The tires are free. Any hardware you have to buy will be minimal. The beauty of a tire rig is that it's super cheap and it's also incredibly durable. With my expensive martial arts dummy, yes, it has a face and I can put a mask on it and it's helpful for targeting specific techniques, but I don't want to hit it that hard because I will damage the mask or the dummy itself. Not so with the tire rig. This thing is incredibly durable. I can put a lot of oomph into my blows and it's great for strength and conditioning training. Now, of course, we would never hit anybody this hard in an actual fencing match. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're just using this as training, and it is good. It makes you stronger, fitter, faster, and it helps you develop control because I can hit it gently or with power. It's also very useful to just do your cuts into the air. Getting used to combining the movement of your body with the sword itself is really useful, and it's gonna make you a better fencer. Next, we're gonna talk about situational blade work. This is blade work that involves another opponent's weapon. Now, if you are solo training, you're not gonna have access to a real person, but there are ways you can simulate an opponent, and my favorite way to do that is with this bicycle stand. This is the RAD, R-A-D bicycle stand. It costs about $75. I'll put a link in my description where you can find it on Amazon, and I think it's well worth the money. Again, this isn't an opponent, but it's a pretty good way to train. From here, I can work on entering the bind and taking advantage. I can put him in a position where perhaps I'm simulating that he's pressing me to the side, which lets me zucken, wind, and do things. There's a lot of unique things you can do with this bicycle stand that help you simulate what it would be like to fence an opponent. Some of my favorites are simulating things that happen in the bind. So if I've got an opponent here who is in long point, maybe I want to enter the bind in advantage. So sword moves first, I step in, and now I've taken the overbind. And from here I can wind and work on other things. Again, I have to imagine what the move my opponent is doing is going to be. So in this situation, I enter the bind and I press here, and I imagine that my opponent tries to press back against me. If I feel that pressure, I wind and then I can thrust. Or I imagine that I enter the bind in a neutral bind and my opponent presses to the side to gain advantage. From here I can zucken, retake, cross, and thrust. There's many things that we can do from here. We can also throw our master cuts as ways to enter the bind. So I can throw Krumpau, I can throw Schielhau, I can throw Zornhau, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty useful tool for repping out techniques to deal with your opponent's blade. And it's not limited to longsword alone. I also use this for rapier and saber, and I'm sure you could use it for just about anything else. The next thing to discuss is strength and conditioning. When we're talking about any athletic pursuit, general fitness is important. Going to the gym and working out is always going to benefit you, even if you're not doing sport-specific training. I would suggest going to the gym 1 to 3 times a week to start out, or if you're more serious, you can go more often. I personally go to the gym every day for one thing or another. There are certain exercises that will benefit your fencing more than others, and there are certain training methods that will also benefit more than others. Sport-specific exercise is always best for that sport, but general fitness is still important, and it's something you shouldn't overlook. I have a course on True Steel focusing on universal footwork mechanics, and part of that course is strength and conditioning exercises for your legs, because it all comes back to footwork. But there are other things you can look at if you want more sport-specific or activity-specific exercises. Mark Weilman is an awesome YouTube channel that does a lot of club weight training, and I'm gonna link him in the description. Definitely worth checking out. And the last thing we're gonna talk about is the most important element of your solo training by far, and that is consistency. If you only practice on your own once every other week, you're not gonna get anything out of it. You've got to be consistent. I suggest practicing every single day. My coach says that you should practice 3 things for 5 minutes each once a day. That's 15 minutes of training. If you can't do that, try practicing 1 thing for 5 minutes a day. Personally, I use the different elements that I've showed you to practice about an hour a day, not including my workouts. And it's been a huge help for me. Recently, I had a giant breakthrough, and it's all down to listening to my coach's advice and then coming home and implementing that on my own and repping it out with good quality reps. So get started, get consistent, and you'll see the growth if you stick with it. If you're trying to start doing solo training, but you don't have access to a local club or any other resources, we just started a new project that's just for you guys. It's called True Steel, and it's a hub for amazing instructors from all over the country and around the world to bring amazing high quality videos to you all about different elements of sword training. So just for this video, we're doing a promotion, 15% off for the next 1 week when you use code SOLO15. That's for any of the products on our site. Go and check them out. I've got a product there on Footwork, like I talked about before, and a bunch of my coaches also have amazing products on there. And yeah, go check it out, have fun, and get to training.